Welcome to all of our friends out there in the Boss Hole Transformation Nation. This is your host, John Brewer, welcoming you to this installment of the Boss Hole Chronicles. Good to have you here, and I'm so excited for you to meet our guest today, Monica Challingsworth. Monica and I were introduced by a friend, Crystal, so thanks very much, Crystal. And let me tell you a little bit about Monica. Monica is the founder and president of Eustress and Demeter, which is a full-service restaurant consulting firm that specializes in building sales programs for multi-unit restaurants and independent operators. She is also one of the co-founders of Dink and Dine Pickle Park, which is opening this summer. Very excited about that. Well, what I'm most excited about is for you to learn about Monica's journey and how from a very early part of her career, she was committed to staying out of the boss hole zone. She's going to share a couple of boss hole stories with us, but also what are some of the resources and the principles and practices that she's applied to be a better version of herself as a manager. So let's jump in. The Boss Hole Chronicles are brought to you by Real Good Ventures, a talent optimization firm helping organizations diagnose their most critical people and execution issues with world-class analytics. Make sure to check out all the resources in the show notes and be sure to follow us and share your feedback. Enjoy today's episode. Monica Challingsworth, it is a pleasure to have you here on the Boss Hole Chronicles. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And our listeners have a little bit of insight about you. I was able to give you a little bit of an introduction before we jumped on here. And they know that we've chatted and we've got a lot of really interesting ground to cover. You're an entrepreneur, founder of your practice that you actually founded with your mom. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Eustress and Demeter, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And what year did you start that business?
That would have been the end of 2017, beginning of 2018.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And your career has taken you into some really interesting places, but our listeners know that Dink and Dine is on the horizon for you. I'm excited about this because, first of all, one of our team members at Real Good Ventures is an avid pickleball player, and it has sort of infected the rest of the organization. So my business partner, Sarah, loves it. She joined up in Toledo Pickle, which is brand new. Yep. So tell us a little bit about Dink and Dine, because I just want to highlight that, and then we'll get a little bit more into your story.
Absolutely. So Dink and Dine Pickle Park, we're opening in Mesa, Arizona this summer, which I know sounds crazy to open in summer in Arizona, but we do have indoor and outdoor courts. So we have 10 indoor courts, so a whole air-conditioned, amazing building with a bar, restaurant in the center, 8 courts over there, and then a whole private dining space with 2 indoor courts, a bar. We're maybe going to do a game lounge. We're kind of going back and forth with that right now. But yeah, we're opening this summer and really excited. So it's a full entertainment pickleball concept. So multiple bars, restaurants. We're dog friendly.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely a destination place.
Oh, that's great. And out of curiosity, we didn't talk about this before. Do you play pickleball? I mean, what was sort of the inspiration?
So when I started it, I didn't.
Okay.
So my business partner, Dave, and I were talking, and he is an avid pickleball, tennis, just racket sports guy. And I'm on the food and beverage, culture, community, sales side of the business. And him and I were a little bit joking about, wouldn't it be great to do this right the first time and, really build something that we believe in. And, and so the idea came in COVID. So, when we were in the middle of that, all we all kept saying was, how much we missed the connection piece of it and being able to do something active. And, even for myself, it's, I want to go out and spend time with my family and my friends, but I don't want to just sit at a restaurant or sit at a bar. I want to do something active and do something to connect. And so that's kind of where the dream was born. And so that was 3.5 years ago, which is easy that it's going to be, close to 4 years by the time we actually get it open. But we spent a lot of time really planning, being thoughtful, being thorough, building the right team. And, and we're doing everything from all of our, menu development and the hiring and development of our team. And, we're thinking with scale in mind. So we are building all of our operations manuals and SAPs and everything that we need to, get this first one open and then grow from there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And again, this expertise comes from, I mean, you have spent, wouldn't it be safe to say the majority of your career in hospitality consulting? So this is very familiar territory for you. Let's talk about your team. That's one of the things that I thought was really fascinating. We'll get to the whole idea of boss hole prevention in just a little bit. But when you and I had a chance to talk before, you put a lot of thought. There was a lot of thought and transparency that went into the partners that came together for Dink and Dine Pickle Park. And what really resonated for me was a set of values and how you work together. Can you give our listeners just a little bit of perspective of why this is working and what were some of the standards you wanted to establish with your partners?
Absolutely. So, to even take it a little bit of a step back, I think that, as I've gone through my career,
Mhm.
the most important thing to me is who we're all surrounded by. So whether it's your friends or in a professional setting. And so Dave and I did work together on multiple projects before we started Dink and Dine.
Okay.
And so when him and I had this conversation, he had another gentleman who I hadn't met yet, who he brought into the fold. And our chef Kelly, who is the founder of Bruxy Chicken and Waffle, they brought Nutella to the U.S., done incredible work. Kelly and I have also worked together on projects.
Right, right.
Our CFO, who's a CFO of Dave's Hot Chicken as well, and just incredible. He had sent me when I started Eustress probably my first 4 or 5 clients. So all of us have really been through the ringer together. We
Mhm.
have been, in good times and bad,
Yeah,
and so we all really know how the other team members are going to make decisions when they are stressed out or when they're in a state of eustress, which is a state of positive stress.
right.
And so because of that, we had a lot of trust coming into it together, and we knew that we all had you know, the same goals, the same values, the same integrity, and that has made it, something really, really special. So when we even I would say probably the first maybe 9 months of us working together, we all went to dinner, sat down, and really just went around the horn and said, what are you in this for? I want to
Mhm.
know exactly what it is that motivates you, what your future plans are, your family dynamics, because we want to make sure that, if we're working, 80 hours a week, is there an upset wife at home or is there an upset husband at home? What
Right.
does it look like so we can all be thoughtful on how we work as, the leadership team. But then also that's something that as we go through, like we just hired our GM about a month ago.
Mhm.
And, that was a lot of the first questions I asked him of tell me more about your family dynamics and, what it is that makes you tick, because that is what's important to us as a leadership team to help support him and everybody else to be successful.
Right, right. Well, what strikes me as so profound about that is one, there were some existing relationships or even secondary. I mean, you had a relationship and they had a relationship with somebody. So by transference, I mean, it sort of came together, but, or by association, it sort of came together. Establishing those ground rules. I mean, and clearly defined expectations because, being entrepreneurs and starting something, a new brand and pulling it out of the ground, that is a huge undertaking. And when I think about the work we do with executive teams and leadership teams, especially with startups, if there is not that trust, and you just said that trust established, it's going to be really a hard road moving forward. And another way I would look at that is there's a degree of psychological safety that you are establishing right away. And in our world, psychological safety is just the absence of the fear of bringing things up or calling out mistakes or being able to trust one another that if I, you know, Monica, if you said, "Hey, John, this is wrong. This approach you're taking, I have some real concerns about it. I trust your judgment on that." And you feel safe enough to bring that up. In other words, destigmatizing failure. And that's powerful because all of you, my guess is that this all comes from your own personal experiences and seeing failure and lack of trust. And when things didn't work out, it's like, let's make sure this is cleared up right from the very beginning. That's got to
Yeah.
be huge.
Yeah, it is. It is. And, even on our eustress side of things, that's something that I value so much in our team members. And like I truly know the decision that everybody's going to make when they're backed into a corner.
Yeah.
And, and based on what it is that's happening. And so that just means so much.
Yeah.
You never have to think. I had a client of ours who I just told him this. We had lunch the other day, and I said the most incredible thing that you've ever said to me, which I've now taken and used a million times,
Right.
is in the absence of information, people will make up their own.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that because, in really anything, I mean, it could be something as simple of, where are you on a project? And,
Hmm.
you might think, oh, they didn't even start yet because I haven't heard anything. Where the other person is, well, it's already finished. I just wanted to have it perfect before I showed it to you.
Right.
Down to, a romantic relationship, a friendship. And so I think that the more that, you can have this trust and transparency, the same values, the same everything, it just makes it so much easier to never assume
Yeah.
or, when we're all nervous, sometimes, we think the worst. And
Oh,
and
yeah.
knowing all of that, it helps you, see the best in whatever these situations could potentially be.
Absolutely. And those, especially situations that involve a lot of pressure
Yeah.
and chaos. I mean, as Sarah, my business partner, would say, we are meaning making machines. And if we don't have objective data, if we don't have something concrete, we can create all kinds of stories in our heads, and typically they're wrong. And that also reminds me of, we're big fans of Patrick Lencioni, and when he talks about the fundamental attribution error, is that in the absence of concrete data and information, we'll make stuff up about people all the time. And a lot of times it's wrong. So that is very powerful. And one other thing I think about is when we measure on a team psychological safety, again, I mean, we have a diagnostic for that. It takes the guesswork out of it. It's like, let's stop attributing meaning to anything and then really make sure what we're looking at. So let me dovetail on something, Monica, when you talk about input you've had from others, and you've had great mentors and I would think influences in your career. I'm sure your mom was one of them, is one
Yeah.
of them. Yeah. Um,
As she's at Coachella right now,
oh, she is? No kidding.
which I
Okay.
love. Her and my
Awesome.
brother. Yeah, I think it's amazing. Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
we're
Good for
partially
her.
her.
Well, we'll have to get her on the podcast sometime.
Oh,
Absolutely.
love it. Yeah.
When we first talked about you being on the podcast, I was asking, as a leader, as somebody in a leadership capacity, not only as a consultant, but also a business owner, how are you doing or what have you done in your career to stay out of the boss hole zone? And you told me that was you made a very concerted effort. You may not have thought it in that term, boss hole, but you know what the term means. And I mean, it's pretty
Mhm.
easy and self evident. But you said there were a couple of books. I asked you, I said, if you were to recommend to somebody, leaders, either newly minted leaders or managers or somebody that was thinking of starting their own business, what would be a couple of resources that were helpful to you? Would you mind sharing those with us? I mean, one of them was Never Eat Alone.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about the impact that had on you.
So, my degree's in hospitality management,
Okay.
and when I had graduated college, I moved to California 3 days later. And one of my favorite professors, who we're still really good friends to this day, gave me 3 recommendations, and one of them was Never Eat Alone.
Okay.
And so I read the whole book on my flight to California and really took it to heart. So it's all about connecting for the right reasons,
Hmm.
networking for the right reasons, being available to the resources that you have and that you find, and by connecting others with no ego or purpose behind it.
Right.
So just truly because, you think somebody could be of value to somebody else, about, the whole you're like never burn a bridge and all of that, which is so true. Our world is so small and you really have your reputation to fall back on, and that's about it at the end of the day.
Right.
So that was, everything I really took from Never Eat Alone. And so when I was, coming from Ohio to California, I didn't know anybody. And
Hmm.
so I had to put myself in the room with others, and learning how to network was really scary. I remember going to my first networking event and I Googled like what to do. You don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes, we're it feels weird that if there's a group of people talking, you don't wanna go up and interrupt them and introduce yourself, and so there's all these things that feel really unnatural to people, and I was like, "Well, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do
I'm
it.
going to put myself out there.
I'm
That's
gonna
right.
put myself out there and just be yourself and, and genuinely listen to people and genuinely hear what they have to say and remember that." So when somebody comes to me about needing, I don't know, it could be anything, a lot of times I'm like, oh my gosh, I just met somebody at this event last week who would be perfect for you,
Right.
whether I, got their information or I remember their name and I'll find them on LinkedIn or, just do an email connect or, call them, text them, ask if it's okay to introduce them to whoever this other person is. And I have been really living in
Right.
that mindset and that philosophy since 2009, and since then, I mean, it's really done wonders. I think that, professionally, I have an incredible network. Personally, I have it, and most of my that's actually really funny. Most of my best friends to this day, I met at that first networking event.
Oh,
I went to
really?
dinner with
Okay.
them 2 nights ago, and the restaurant that they're having the same event at,
Mhm.
they haven't done it there, and the GM was asking, like, "How is this group?" And I started laughing, and I was like, "Well, the 2 girls that I'm here with are 2 of my best friends in the whole world, and I met them at that event back in, like, 2010."
Oh, that's cool.
So
That's cool. No accidents like we talk about. There's no accidents. That's very neat. Well, you also talked about conscious capitalism. You thought
yes.
that was also a helpful read. Just give us a glimpse into why that was beneficial to you.
So I mean, I've always loved the world of business.
Mhm.
I didn't think that I was going to start my own, and now I've started several, and I love it, and I would not change a thing. But as I discovered that book, it was all about, being driven by purpose and service,
Mhm.
not ego and not power. Building companies that were, again, for all of the right reasons, that you're taking everybody into consideration. So, not just your investors, but, your team members, your leadership team, your everybody, your customers, your community, your environment, that if you can look at how business is impacting everything and everyone around you, it can be done so beautifully. And,
Mhm.
the amount of jobs that you can create, but not just creating jobs to say, "Oh, we have another," like, I hate when everybody says, "Oh, we just need another warm body to be on the line or to do
Right.
something." That
Yeah.
is awful because they're not. They are humans with families and purpose and all of these beautiful things in their life, and that might be a small portion to whatever the business is,
Mhm.
but you could be their entire world. I mean, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and so being able to have those conversations and really understand the people that you're working next to, and whether you're on the line with them or you're the CEO of the company, I think that it you have to take all of these factors and go into all of them for the right reasons. And
Right.
again, going back to the safety part of it, making sure that they do feel emotionally safe and, they're not worried about losing their job every 10 minutes because the company's going through so much. And I believe in transparency.
Mhm.
I mean, across the board. And I think that there's a very fine line between, all of the team members knowing what's happening in the business and not feeling afraid for their jobs,
Right.
but then also, keeping everybody informed, but knowing that, they are safe and they're not just another, line item on a P&L.
Exactly, exactly. And when we talk about our mission at Real Good Ventures is to help people find meaning and fulfillment in their work. We help our clients do that. We just happen to do it through analytics and behavioral data. Nobody goes into a job hoping that they're going to be miserable. And at the same time, a business leader you cannot divulge everything because I think it would put some people into a tailspin, but at least being included and feel like this is being communicated to me. I feel like I do have or a stakeholder. I'm a stakeholder in this business and ownership of my role. That is so powerful, but that is a huge change from now. I know I'm older than you are, and I came up through the more of the command and control management and leadership philosophy, and that is such an archaic. Living strictly in that model is is not helping organizations right now. I mean, we're moving from that to what we refer to as a trust and autonomy workplace, and it's not one or the other. It is a continuum, but for organizations that are sort of rooted in that, my people are yes, they're our most important resource, but we treat them like a cog in a machine.
Yeah.
That still happens, and Do you wonder why disengagement, according to Gallup, is at a 10-year high? And so we have the business owners and managers, that's what the Boss Hole Chronicles is about. We can change that trend, but it's an inside out job when it comes to leaders and managers. So I love that idea of being conscientious or conscious of it and realizing that these are human beings, messy, fallible, wonderful human beings, and they make our businesses run and we want to take care of them. That's cool.
So I worked at Portage Country Club, which you probably know out there.
Yep.
And my Michelle, who was my first like real boss, uh, she was so tough. She was so
Oh, okay.
and her and I are so close to this day. Like I've been on vacation with her. Like it has been so many years, but her toughness was from a place of love. Like, I was in college and I'd go out on Thursday nights, and then I have to work at
Yeah.
the country club at 2 o'clock on Fridays, and I would sleep until 1 in the afternoon because I was in college. And so I'd get up and she'd be like, "Monica, you're you're everything is wrinkled and like, no, this isn't gonna work. So like you need to like go back and change or whatever." And come and anyway, it's just really funny. So it was like when I say tough, it was, or I would try to call off because I was tired and she's like, "It's not happening." And all the years I worked there, I probably tried to call off 50 times.
Okay.
I didn't call off actually once because she's like, "You're gonna get your butt in here and you're gonna be just fine, and if you need to take a break," and she knew that it was just because I was tired. I wasn't actually if I was actually sick, of course she
Oh,
would.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But,
But how cool she took a vested interest in you.
she did.
And her name is Michelle?
Michelle.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Michelle is an example of a non-boss hole.
Yeah.
Tough,
Tough
okay.
love, which is a nice thing.
But that's nice, but also, I mean, she actually took a real vested interest in your growth and development. Maybe she saw that spark and she said, Monica's got something. And at the same time, she could just be very conscientious about her role and how, I've got to make sure these people that are on my team are showing up and what my expectations are. And I consider that to be obviously by virtue of you mentioning her, positive influence in who you are.
Absolutely.
But let's turn the tables a little bit. And I told you I was going to bring this up without any names. We'll talk about Michelle because she's amazing and that's cool. Hopefully she'll hear this. Make sure you share it with her. But obviously everybody has some really authentic boss hole stories in their career. And you shared two with me. And if you wouldn't mind sharing it without any names or any specifics, one was kind of affirming and the other was a little alarming. But I think that they really help to stiffen your resolve in terms of the work you're doing as an entrepreneur. So would you mind giving us a glimpse into those two?
Yes. So, I think they were both so powerful and profound. And I thought about it last night after you and I had spoken
Hmm.
of really the impact that both of these had. So, and they weren't too far timeline wise of when they both happened.
Okay.
And my last real job that I was at was I had connected with both of these individuals, and I I respected both of them, looked up to both of them, and was, I mean, truly enamored by what they were doing in the industry.
Sure.
And so I came into it, with these, big eyes and all excited about
Yeah.
everything. And so I think that's probably why it made more of an impact because of
Okay.
my perception of them coming into it. But I had really wanted a certain title at the place that I was at, and we were acquired by another group.
Hmm.
And so it was a big change in our leadership team, and I didn't get it.
Okay.
And when that had happened, I felt very defeated, and we had a little friction between our personalities anyways. And so when I did start my consulting group and we were doing so well, I
Hmm.
saw him at a restaurant and had a little bit of liquid courage. So I was very driven to go over and say something to him, and it was so motivating because he had, heard of all of the things that we were doing in our industry. He was very proud of me. He had, mentioned that he had some regrets about how our relationship turned out
Sure.
and wishes that he actually would have promoted me and all these wonderful things. And anyways, it was just we had a really nice conversation, and I don't know exactly what my intentions were when I went over to him, but it ended in a really positive, beautiful light.
Okay.
And I take a lot from that of, in the way of just knowing that I was on the right track. And the second one, I was definitely on the right track because we were doing very, very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And we were building catering and incremental revenue programs for a lot of fast casual restaurant groups.
Okay.
And in California, a lot of them, are based here and it's a very small world. So the same CFOs that, kind of move around and have given me a lot of business, same thing with the CEOs, COOs. Everybody really knows each other.
Right.
And, there was a group that was really one of the motivators to start my business, and they were my dream client. I would have given anything to work with them.
Okay.
And I get a phone call to go and meet with them in their office, and I was elated. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was over the moon. I'm like, "This is gonna be amazing. Like, I've done it. I've succeeded. They're gonna hire us, and it's gonna put me on the map, and it's gonna be so incredible." And, I get there, and I was wrong. They, were very upset about the work that we were doing because we were building these programs for their competitors.
Okay.
He cornered me in his office. He threatened me. It was awful. I was shaking. I was so upset. I had nothing to even say and basically said, that I need to shut down my business, that they should know that this is a threat and that I should really, you know,
Yeah.
they
Reconsider
like,
your
they
choices
listen
about,
to
yeah.
everything. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
and at
Wow.
one point, or they didn't even at one point say, like, "We would like you to come and work for us," or even be able to say, like, sign a non-compete. I've had some really large clients who I've signed non-competes with
Yeah.
that wouldn't build these programs for their direct competitors, and those have been fine.
Mm-hmm.
None of that happened, and so I was so shocked and terrified, and I left, and I got in my car, and I just started bawling my eyes out, and I
Wow.
was shaking, like, when you're so nervous, like, the inside of your legs are shaking,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I called my mom, and I'm like, "I can't believe this." Like, she thought I was calling her to be like, "They hired us, and this is
Right.
amazing,"
Right.
and I'm like, "I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Like, I think we need to shut down the business." Like, I was spiraling, and so she let me, talk it out.
Sure.
She's like, "Monica, all I hear is, like, we are on fire. If they are this worried about
Yeah.
little old Monica and what she's doing, you are on to something. Don't even think twice about this. This is going to propel you into everything." And she's like, "It just depends on how you wanna take this. Like, do you wanna sit here and be scared by some jerk, or do you wanna find this as a motivator and really get out there
Yeah.
and continue to kill it?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Ugh,
Yeah.
okay, you're right." I mean, I had, like a 2-hour drive home where I thought about it, and then I, put on some angry girl music and was like, "No, you're right. You're right. This is gonna be amazing." And it really, I mean, and we kept going, and, I made sure that, that also what that did teach me is all of our new clients as were going in for these meetings, I'd let them know if we were working with somebody very close in their space and just
Right.
to say, "We built this program for them. Your business is entirely different. I sign NDAs with everybody,
Right.
and,
Right.
there is," and that has never once happened again. Even now, I mean, I'm so transparent about who we're working with and what we're doing that nobody once has ever been like, "Well, I can't hire you because you just did this for, my competitor across the street." They're like, "Amazing. I see what you've done for them. They've taken a lot of our business. So, there's enough to go around, but please come help us because we
Right.
want a name."
Right.
And so I assumed he was like everybody was like him, and not at all. I mean, that was so many years ago, and that has never even come close to happening again. Now we're still 100% referral based, and, everybody who introduces us to somebody else, I mean, it's really cute on their emails, like, they'll say, "We don't want to do this because we know what is going to happen,
Right.
but we value you, other CEO and COO of this restaurant group, and you should really work with Monica and her team." And, so
Well,
so it's been wonderful since, but
thank you for sharing both of those. I mean, the first one, somebody who demonstrated real professional courtesy and an element of class, just to congratulate you and acknowledge that, we knew you were going to crush it. Congratulations. Sorry that it didn't work out for us. So That to me is somebody that can take the higher road.
Hmm.
And this is also where we talked a little bit yesterday about how, and I think you share this. We share this in common. We very much take an abundance mentality at Real Good Ventures versus scarcity. The second boss will definite scarcity mentality, and you struck the fear in them. And I don't know. You were telling me that story yesterday. I was going, yeah, all right, Monica, yeah. No, and of course, at that time you're thinking, but it's like an adrenaline rush. You're shaking. It's like I cannot believe what happened, especially walking into that thinking, this is awesome. And they called you to the office to do that. That takes a lot of guts. That's true boss hall behavior right there. So anyway, I share that. I thank you for sharing that with the Boss Hole Transformation Nation, because people need to learn from that. You clearly learned from that, and again, I think it emboldened you and confirmed you're on the right track. For sure. And it's thank goodness for your mom too, being able to just sort of okay, and there would have been somebody, but nobody like a parent to be able to sort of level set things for you. Well,
Yeah.
as we begin to wrap things up, this has been great, and I want to remind our listeners, go into the show notes. I'll put a link to the books that you mentioned. Will obviously put a link to your contact information. I'm going to put a link in there to Dink and Dine Pickle Park in Mesa. So to all of our listeners out in the Mesa, Arizona area, make sure you have this on your radar. Well, I'm thinking that Real Good Ventures, we take a retreat every year, and last couple of years it's been in Florida, and we played a lot of pickleball. Maybe we need to go to Mesa.
And you
So
to do.
yeah. So one final thing I wanted to address, and you shared this with me yesterday. You've been as a business owner, business leader. I think you got some feedback around kind of your style about how you run things and how you are really not very corporate was the word you used. You're more collaborative, and I totally get that. But apparently, somebody was questioning, not questioning in a bad way, but just wondering. This doesn't feel very corporate. You run things in a very open and collaborative way, which I think is your style. Why is that important to you?
I'm in the middle of balancing this right now. And it's really interesting because it's a business,
Hmm.
but that phrase, like it's not personal, it's business kind of thing, but it is, everything's personal.
It is right.
When I think about our team members and the people who I've worked next to for so many years on the Eustress side,
Hmm.
if it wasn't for them, we would be nothing.
Right.
And they know that, on their side, if it wasn't for me, then they wouldn't have all the work and all the business. And they don't like this side of it. They don't like the networking and building the business and the invoicing and all the things that go with it. They just want to do an incredible job for our clients
Right.
and do. Our clients are so happy and making so much money, and they're just it's a win for everyone. And so, when I really take a step back and look at how we scale as a consulting group, which by the way, scaling consulting is very challenging.
Oh yeah, absolutely it is.
Like I thought, I'm like, oh, this will be great. I'll hire more people. We'll get more clients. And, the business side of scaling a consulting group, especially because we're in California and they're
Mhm.
not employees of Eustress. So you have to be really careful about what that looks like and, the work-life balance for them.
Yep.
But without them, there isn't Eustress. There's just me. And that's not going to get us very far.
Right.
So as we continue to add to our team, which we added 3 more team members last year,
Okay.
and and actually, ironically, it's 100% women ran right now, and that's not necessarily like on purpose, but I love that it is.
Mhm.
And as I continue to, build out our team, I kind of always ask the same questions about what is important to you. Tell me your family dynamic. Let me know, exactly, your financial expectations, because that's important to me. I need to understand like what number it is that you need to be at each month to make you feel safe, to
Right.
make you not have to worry about, trying to go and find other work somewhere else. And again, without understanding all of that, without knowing everybody, without collaborating on those, then you're just somebody who is working for somebody else who's,
Yeah.
out and doing consulting work. And we don't want that. We want it to feel like a family because we're going in and, we're really helping turn these restaurant groups around and they become a part of us, and we want to be the extension with them. And if we don't have that from our leadership side, then we can't do that for our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Great point. And again, I can't help but think that it's so much a reflection of just in meeting you and how you're wired, your DNA, if you will, very much a reflection of that. And that's probably why it feels very natural about how you run it. And other people may say, well, this isn't traditional or this isn't typical. Yeah, business, if we keep going back to the typical or traditional, we're still going to be struggling with the same old problems. So let's create some new positive problems, positive stress, if you will.
I'm
If
used to it.
the Eustress, that's right. I will also put in the show notes, by the way, just to let our listeners know, this whole thing started. You and I were introduced by a good friend of yours, a client of ours,
Best friend
and
in the whole world.
yeah,
Yes.
Crystal's amazing, and I'm so glad she introduced us. But I also found that Influencer Daily did an article about you back in December of 2024. I will put that in there, and the focus of that is your people-centered approach to management, leadership, owning a business. So please, everybody, read that and get to know Monica a little bit better. And definitely make sure you check out Dink and Dine, Pickle Park in Mesa, Arizona. But Monica, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. It's been great.
All right, everybody. Like I said, go check out the show notes. We will see you next time on the Boss Hole Chronicles. Thanks very much for checking out this episode of the Boss Hole Chronicles. It was so good to have you here. And if you have your own Boss Hole story that you want to share with the Boss Hole Transformation Nation, just reach out. You can email us at mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. Again, mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. We'll see you next time.